bit better than the average person.
Yes.
Now, is that always the case? No, it depends what you're reading, what you're focusing on.
Yes.
But I think you're right with the sense of the patience part. I think that we're getting away from being
100%.
patient, and that's something that people don't even talk about, because even to be successful, you need patience for that. You can't just think, I'm gonna, open a YouTube channel and then I'm gonna be Mr. Beast. I'm gonna be somebody that's, a huge figure and just make an impact immediately. It's not gonna happen like that.
To give you a piece of my mind.
From Normal Bros, and we back at it again. First of all, I'm gonna need you to tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a mother effing friend to follow and subscribe to your boys. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other podcast platforms as well. You can catch us on YouTube and TikTok. That's Far From Normal Podcast. Make sure you type that into a search engine and see the boys on those clips. We got everything for you. We got the website, www.farfromnormalpodcast.com. We got all the links up there. Make sure you check it out. Of course, YouTube. We're on Instagram as well. That's far_from_normal_podcast. Check it out. You already know. It's your boy Fuzzy Vision. I see the world clear, and I see the future, and the future is bright. You already know. Fuzzy Vision with 2 N's. If you have any likes, dislikes, rebuttals, or you want to be on the podcast, hit your boy up. Sonny, drop the handle, baby.
You already know what it is. It's your boy Sonny Frames. You can catch me on the gram at Sonny, SONNY, Frames, double S at the end. Make sure when you do check out my Instagram page, check out my stories, because I usually post a lot of stuff that has to do with motivation, inspiration, chasing your dream, and execution. So let's not forget, any dream that you're trying to achieve, the only way that you'll ever achieve it is through execution and putting a plan to motion. So make sure that you don't just stay in the dream world, and make sure you make it a reality.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
And Fuzzy, let's get him.
All right, brother. What's good? What's good, man? What's new? What's going on?
It's been an interesting weekend because of that whole Dundas West Fest that usually happens every summer.
Yeah. I actually ran through it, actually. That's funny enough. I ran through that.
Because I seen you post on your stories that you're running through it.
Yep.
At the time you're running at the time you're running through it, how much people were in it at that time? Was it not that busy?
It wasn't that busy. It was just starting up, I wanted to get a quick run in. So then I'm like, you know what? I could check the fest at the same time. So I'm like, let me check it out. Went out there. There was it was just heating up. So things were just picking up.
Okay. So what time was that around?
Around 12-ish. Around 12-ish. So things were heating up. And that's a festival on Dundas West Street.
Yeah.
This is Toronto. They have a little festival going on. I guess they just sell they have a bunch of thrift stuff, markets, all type of shit. And then they had a night vibe. I heard it's even going on till now. They have it popping still at night and stuff going on down there. But aside from that, what have you been paying attention to recently? In terms of, the NBA Finals is going on, Stanley Cup we got going on. There's a lot of sports ending right now. So I know for myself, I just watched the men's tennis finals, and that was a crazy game. I'm not really a big tennis fan, but you know what? Seeing some of the stuff that they're capable of doing, I have to give it up to them. They play a hard sport. And even the finals, I know that's been going on. I don't know if you pay attention to that.
I've been definitely keeping up with the finals for NBA, Dallas versus Boston. And
what's your thoughts, man?
I honestly believed
Young Bucks are here.
I honestly believed at first that Dallas was the team to potentially win it all.
Yeah.
Right? I thought they just had the talent, but at the same time, they're not an all-around team, not like Boston. Boston has a lot of pieces to work with.
Yes, sir.
What makes it a lot better for them and a lot easier on their stars to take a back seat, and then other people will pick up the slack. Whereas for Dallas, they don't have pieces that'll pick up the slack if Kyrie doesn't show up or if Luka doesn't show up.
100%.
Then they have a big problem on their hands. And in game one, that was their issue. They didn't have anybody else to show up when Kyrie wasn't playing his best. And then when Luka was getting locked down by Jaylen Brown, they there was nothing that they could do to combat that type of force, that defensive force.
Yeah, no, just in sports in general. I know for me, like I just think about like how I used to be when I was watching sports when I was younger.
Yeah.
And like so much has changed. Like I used to be like very interested in like the storylines and the teams and the favorite player and stuff like that. And Luka Doncic is one of those players that I deem the next LeBron. And I said that because he's just like extreme talent.
Yeah.
The guy's been playing pro from a long time ago. And statistically, he's the only guy that I think that can, rival LeBron. But I noticed as you get older, you stop paying attention to like sports and you stop paying attention to certain things that interested you a lot more when you're younger. I think when you're younger, you feel like you have potential to maybe make it to these leagues and have those opportunities. And then when you get older, you understand that it's a business and it has to do with entertainment and it kind of wastes your time, right? Like when you're watching sports, like these games are 3 hours.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a big waste of time. I think a lot of people don't put that in perspective. When I first realized that was when I was living overseas and I didn't have time to sit there and watch a 3-hour game. So what I would do is, because the new thing was that they would sum up a game in 9 minutes. But prior to that, at some point I realized that I'm going to just watch the first quarter and the fourth quarter because you just want to know how it starts off and how it ends, because in the middle, it doesn't matter. So I always looked at the first quarter matters because you want to see where the pendulum's going to swing. You just want to have a good understanding of the game. And then when you get to the end, now these are the dire seconds. The thrill is going to be there. The roller coaster ride in the middle, I mean, it's not that necessary. You can skip that roller coaster ride and just get to the end. But then when they started making the 9-minute highlight reels or the highlights on YouTube, I started watching that. And then I'm like, this is perfect. Now I know all the best parts of the game. And I don't need to sit through commercials. I don't need to watch a full 3 hours. It's only 9 minutes of my day.
Yeah.
And now it's even shorter than that because now you can watch Reels, you can watch TikTok, like things that are like maybe a minute long.
Yeah.
And get a quick sum up of the game. So you start to realize like, wow, if you put in perspective, how much time was I wasting watching these games before?
Well, I try to put things into perspective. I think, even though we say, like you said about the game, you're talking about you rather just watch the first and the fourth quarter because obviously it shows the beginning of the game, so you can kind of gauge what's going on. You can kind of see who's building momentum or who's making a statement at the beginning, and then at the end, that's going to be obviously the conclusion of the game. So whatever happens at that point, you'll know, is it a blowout? You'll figure these things out in the fourth quarter. But it's funny because like I think this actually translates to other things as well, because think about books. At the end of the day, do people sit down and read books these days, or do they just want to read a summarized version?
Yes.
And instead of having to, take, who knows, it might take you 2 weeks to finish a book that's like 500 pages, 2 or 3 weeks, a month. Some people, it takes them 3 months to finish one book.
No, you're right. And but I do want to combat that because I want to combat that point because a book is a little different than watching the game. The purpose of a book for some people is to increase your vocabulary. Right? And then it's also to strengthen your mind to stay focused for a long period of time.
And that would be the same thing for entertainment, because the point of the game is that you're supposed to watch the game from the first beginning
but that's for entertainment.
through to the ending.
You're trying to learn information, right? A lot of the time, when you're, let's say you get mail, right?
Yeah.
And it's important to read that mail. If you've trained your brain to only look at stuff, if you can only look at things for a short period of time, it's going to be very difficult for you to read certain information that's given to you.
Yep.
From work or through email, or you won't be able to sit still and just read it. So that's the purpose. It's to build that focus, to be able to sit down and read stuff, even when you're building stuff in your home. Right? If you want to read the instructions to get a good understanding, you won't have the patience to do that because you're so used to reading information in a short period of time that anything that takes longer than a certain amount of time, you're going to get irritated by. So you don't really have room to learn about the information that you're really looking for, but at the same time, there is summed up versions of the information. But do they do that for instructions? Are there summed up versions where people could just read a little summary of, oh, this is how you build this in a summarized version?
I think they have certain things that make it maybe easier to understand, because the fact of the matter is that it's not about patience necessarily when it comes to gaining information, right? So sometimes it is about patience, but sometimes it's about getting to the meat and potatoes, getting to the main point of what it is you're reading, right? So if the fact of the matter is, when you read a book, you're not getting all the information you're reading. Now, it's what you said. Yes, you're building patience, and that's something you probably should do if you're a person that doesn't have patience, of course, because it makes you focus in and not get distracted by outside noise. Because to read is a extreme focus. Because in our day and age, we have social media, we have our phone going off. You know, like we we're talking about, the finals going on, this going on, entertainment's all over the place. You know, your friends are hitting you up, so you don't really have that much time, especially say even like an hour, that you can just avoid every distraction and lock in and focus. So I think it is a lost art for sure, because even when I was younger,
that's a good way to put it.
Definitely art. It's an art, because I think, you know, the more you read stuff and the more you engage yourself in like whatever type of literature it is gonna build your vocabulary. It is gonna make you speak more confidently and understand people when they speak from maybe a different point of view, or that have a higher level of vocabulary. You might understand them a little bit better than the average person. Now, is that always the case? No, it depends what you're reading, what you're focusing on. But I think you're right with the sense of the patience part. I think that we're getting away from being 100%. Patient. And that's something that people don't even talk about, because even to be successful, you need patience for that. You can't just think, I'm going to, you know, open a YouTube channel and then I'm going to be Mr. Beast. I'm going to be somebody that's, you know, a huge figure and just make an impact immediately. It's not going to happen like that. And if you've read through books and you've read through other people's lives, you'd understand that even those that become successful had a very strong affinity for patience. They may have been impatient in their head, but the tactics in which they used to get to where they got needed a lot of consistency, and consistency comes with patience, because to be consistent at something, you have to do it for a long time, and you have to be patient with that process.
Yes, and that's what I'm talking about, because I mean, I've seen people that, you know, start YouTube channels, and when things aren't going right, they throw in the towel really quickly,
absolutely,
right?
all the time.
And this is due to the lack of patience, right? They're not accustomed to doing things for a long period of time. And that's the biggest problem with this day and age, where because we're bombarded by so many different media outlets, social media, our friends, events that we go to, communities that we are in, there's so many things that keep us distracted, and we're always looking for that next dopamine hit, which causes us not to lock in on one specific thing for a certain period of time until it works. And I always use reading and stuff where I have to stay focused for a certain period of time as a training regimen, because it steadies the mind. For that 30 minutes to an hour, I'm just sitting there focusing on that. It's just like when people do meditation. Meditation is a form of you just forgetting about everything and just staying in one place for a certain amount of time, and that requires patience. That's what the difficulty that's the difficulty in meditation, because people can't sit still. They can't not put everything off for a certain amount of time, time period, and just sit there. And we've seen that a lot during COVID. A lot of people going crazy with just being at home, can't sit still. They can't listen to their inner thoughts. They couldn't, you know, they're losing their mind, you know.
Of course, a lot of people.
They went around their
mental health. I know mental health went up, like in terms of like getting booked in for a psychologist, psychiatrist, and all that type of medication, like all these different services were offered during COVID, because people were not used to being isolated.
Yes.
We're used to not interacting with other people, not used to not going to the same places they frequent as well,
Yes.
right? So that's interesting that you said that. Like I think with the mentality of us being impatient, why do you think, or I should actually say, as you get older, do you believe that, you may be stepping away from distractions more? Like as you gotten older, do you feel like you have more ability to pick and choose what you get distracted by compared to when you're younger, where you wanted to fit in and you wanted to, be around the mix and experience this new thing? Because even when you get older, there's still new experiences you want.
Yes.
For example, some people, when they were younger in their 20s, they decide to travel, they decide to party, they decided to do all the things that 20-year-olds typically do, live their life.
Yeah.
And then some people didn't do that when they're at that age, right? So when they get to a certain age, they start to live that life. They might be more financially stable. They may have, solidified themselves a little bit better in their career. So now they want to travel. They want to do different things. And whether it's trying new things or, get into new hobbies, what do you consider a distraction or what do you consider something that's helpful? Because I think like a lot of people do stuff that, or do a lot of stuff that are distracting.
Yes.
And they're not really keyed in on anything. It's almost like having like a utility knife. Like you're like multifaceted, but not great at anything. Master of none. You have skills in plenty other realms, but you're a master of none. Do you think that's where we're headed to, where people are just not going to be that focused in on whatever industry it is? Like people are just going to be spreading themselves too thin and not really, take grip or take a stand in any situation. People are just going to be kind of floating, not really being pro this or pro that, more in the middle, nonchalant type of attitudes. Like, what do you think that breeds?
So I personally think what tends to happen as you get older, depending on the individual, because everybody's cases are different, those that were training themselves to become more locked in on specific things are going to continuously grow in that fashion where they're able to zoom in on specific things. But I also find myself, straying away sometimes. I have to always guide my mind back, because at the same time, your mind wants to do everything. You want to be here, there, you know what I mean? You want to be, it's almost like a FOMO effect.
That's what I mean. And even when you get older, it doesn't change. You still feel that you need to accomplish certain things. Yeah.
You still feel that.
Still feel that.
Oh, I want to get here. I want to do this. I want to do that. But then you have to be a little bit realistic with yourself. You only can do so much in a certain time period. So now you have to zoom in and decide, what specifically can you do right now? And limit yourself to two, I would say 1 to 2 things. And then when that's accomplished, you move on to the next 1 to 2 things, right? There's a book called One Thing that really tells you to focus on one thing.
Yes,
and then,
put all your focus on
put all your focus on one thing. And then when that thing is completed, move on to the next. It's just like if you're reading a book, focus on the one book. Yeah, you can read 2 books. You could read them simultaneously. Like that's definitely possible and that's definitely doable. But you're always gonna like one book more than the other. So you're gonna probably lean towards the one that you like more. So if that's the case, why don't you eliminate one of those books and just stick with that one book? Then when that book is completed, move on to the next. I don't think we're designed to be multifaceted. I think everything that we do and what makes us so-called multifaceted is us doing one thing and then that was completed, then you moved on to the next thing and then that was completed. So now you have an arsenal of things that you've completed, which makes it seem like you're multifaceted. But these are just stuff that you did over time, right?
Yep.
Through the years, you kept adding on to things that you were doing. So if someone sees you working out, and then now you're a runner, and now you're a swimmer, and now you're a whatever,
Yeah.
now you're doing calisthenics, these were all built up over time. But to the layman or to the regular eye, it seems like you are multifaceted. You just happen to do everything at the same time. But it's like, no, I did this at a certain point in my life, and then I did this at a certain point in my life.
So it definitely has to be controlled. Like you
Yes.
have to know exactly. You have to lock in, even if it's even if you're locking into multiple things.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you're not focused singularly
Yes.
on those things. Because again, like if you're trying to be a good swimmer, you're not
Yes.
focused on swimming and running. Well, you
Yes.
already know how to run,
Yes.
so that would be solved already. Now you have
Yes.
to learn how to swim, so you understand. You'd probably have to spend more time understanding how to
Exactly.
swim.
Exactly.
And it's funny we're talking about like locking in and being like singularly focused,
Yes.
because when it comes to dating, I feel that a lot of people are getting off of that singular focus.
Yes.
And a lot of the
Very much.
times, because we're dating, and because the options and because the apps and because of whoever's hitting you up, you have those options.
Mm-hmm.
People don't lock in or always think maybe I should dabble in this, maybe I should dabble in that. So a lot of indecisiveness, and that's why I figured our society is going where people are becoming indecisive and not really wanting to do something and have a serious effect. And think about like relationship wise, wouldn't you agree that nowadays a lot of people are not as people aren't as I would say people are less likely to get into a relationship in this day and age? Or I should pose that question, do you think people are less likely to be in a long-term relationship these days, especially when it comes to marriage or sticking with one person for a stretch of time? Because we've heard relationships, and we can look back at our parents or other people's parents we know, where you hear of these 40-year-long relationships, 50-year-long relationships. Like, realistically, do you think the way our society is going, these things are going to be the more likely outcome? Or do you think that people are saying to themselves, maybe I can like you for 10 years? I haven't seen something on YouTube recently where a guy was married. He is actually an older gentleman, and he was married for 20 years. And he was saying that, you know what, 20 years is a good amount of time to be with somebody. That's what he said. And just to put things in perspective, people last for 40 years. I met someone the other day. She was married to her husband for 40 years. Of course, older generation.
Yes.
Where they could put up with each other and deal with those things. But with nowadays with the new modern age, do you believe that people are less likely to be in long-term committed relationships?
So I would look at it in terms of, with the way things are going currently,
At least in our society. Let's not speak to the world.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, in terms of the way things are going in Western society, we're not currently designed to have long relationships unless you come from an immigrant family and you're maybe second generation. They might teach you the values of and the importance of being with, one person for a long time period. But I think if you're like third, fourth generation, and then you're more intertwined and intermingle with the society, I think most of the time, you're not designed for a long relationship, and that's why people steer away from it, and those relationships become situationships. And then also there's a lot of ramifications when you get into a relationship, and I think a lot of men and women just don't want to deal with all that extra baggage that comes with being in a relationship. I think a lot of people want things to be more simple and easy and in and out, almost like a fast food restaurant. You know what I mean? They don't want to invest. They don't want to put a heavy investment, because if you look at social media and then you look at the hookup culture, because we have to also acknowledge that, the society as we know it today is known to be a hookup culture.
Yeah.
So people get around.
Yes,
right?
of course.
And because people
It's not
around,
as taboo as it's been in the
exactly.
past.
And because people are getting around, people are always looking at how much effort an investment do I want to put in the other individual?
Also, resiliency is not there no more. Like sticking around.
Yes.
Where when something goes wrong, and which it will happen in
Yes.
relationships, you're with somebody for years and years, there's going to be ups and downs.
Yes.
And even financially,
Yeah.
emotionally,
Yeah.
there's going to be times where, you know, you change as a person, you know, you develop as a person, whether for the good or the bad, but there's going to be a lot of growing pains with that. Just like when you're young and you're getting taller, your knees start to hurt.
Yes.
It's not going to be the smoothest transition sometimes. And it seems to me that, you know, we now feel like we have that quick exit button. We just click exit and boom. And it's the same thing like with in relationships nowadays, especially with dating, where you can date somebody and then you know what we do in this culture, we just ghost them if we don't want to deal with those type of things.
That's what I was gonna ask you about.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, but why does it get to the point of ghosting? That's the question that I sometimes ponder over.
Why we ghost people?
No, yeah. So if you're in a relationship or a situationship with a person for a long period of time,
Yes.
and there's no real animosity towards you, and
Yeah.
so you guys, it still ended off amicably
And cordial, yeah.
and cordial, but at the same time you ghosted the person.
I always wondered why people ghosted
I'm
others,
interested.
and
I'm
I'm not gonna say
interested.
I'm not guilty of this, right? Because I come from this society, like we ghost people. It is what we do because we don't want to deal with expressing the truth. Because when we have to express the truth, sometimes people don't want to hear the truth, and you don't want to necessarily hurt their feelings. But in turn, ignoring them doesn't help their feelings. But here's the thing: hear me out. When you ignore somebody, or if you block them, you basically eliminated them from your life.
Yes.
So I noticed like some people would do, I heard some women would do this. I'm not too sure men do this as well, but of course they must. They also block you on like social media or block your number. So then there's no way for you to contact them either way. It's like they want to hide. Some people want to hide from rejection or don't want to admit to what their feelings are. Like we have a problem of expressing ourselves and articulating ourselves a certain way because we believe that if we break down bad news, somebody's going to react negatively towards it. So say for example, if I, you know, went out with a girl and I message her afterwards and I say like, you know what, like you're a cool girl and, you know, I just don't see anything happening between us two. Now there's two things that can happen. She can be understanding or she can be upset. And then with her, if she's understanding, she might just say, you know what? That's the process. We go on a date. If we like each other, we set up another day. If we don't like each other, I'd rather you tell me now than waste my time in hopes that this is going to work out. So you save time in that. But now some people will be upset because they feel like, you know, you might have talked for a long time and invested at least time and, you know, exchange information. Maybe you told them some personal stuff about yourself. Maybe you got intimate with them. So then now you're going to break down to them that you're not feeling the situation, and that may come with questions. That may come with you having to explain yourself. And I think people don't want to take that onus on themselves. They don't want to have to explain themselves to somebody they feel they don't owe it. They don't owe anything towards or owe anything to. Reason why they don't owe anything to is because in that person's mind, whoever it is, they might say to themselves, well, I've only talked to you for 1 month. I've only talked to you for 3 weeks. So we haven't built this type of relationship that warrants me caring about your feelings.
I understand that aspect. I'm talking about if you were in a situationship for a long period of time.
Oh, okay.
Right? And I said, everything seems to be normal. You know, you guys are cordial. Person decides to leave amicably. Why does it end up becoming ghosting?
Okay, that's funny because yes, that also happens. I've heard people in situations that were cordial or situationships. Like basically, you guys would communicate with each other, probably meet up
Yes.
to a certain degree, like often or definitely occasionally,
Yeah.
but enough that you're familiar with one
Yes.
another. You've known each other for a little
Yes.
bit, and maybe you do owe it to somebody to just tell them, you're not no longer interested in this form of relationship.
Yes.
It may not be that serious of a relationship, so you shouldn't feel away. But I see why people feel away because ultimately, no one wants to be the bearer of bad news. Ultimately, nobody wants to be the bearer of bad news, and I've learned that because they always say, "Don't shoot the messenger." And why do they say that? They say don't shoot the messenger because it's whoever delivers the message gets the animosity.
Yes.
Unfortunately. So if you told me to go tell somebody about, a bad fortune of something, like I'm the one that's going to have to deal with the emotional reaction of it. So I think a lot of people don't want to deal with the emotional reaction side of it. And sometimes they also overestimate themselves. So I think some people think like, oh, like I don't want that person to feel sad. And then that person might feel mutual. She or he might feel, no, it's cool if we don't see each other no more. I was kind of on the same boat as you. But if you don't communicate, you would never know what reaction that person is going to give. Because some people, it can end amicably.
Yeah.
Some people, it's a mutual, both of you goes your own separate ways. Or at least there's understanding where they can say, okay, I understand then, so we can go our separate ways. But it's no, I hate you, I need to block you, I need to ghost you. It's more of a common respect. So I guess what's happening now is that respect is not there no more, where we just don't have respect for a lot of the people we may be talking to enough for us to explain to them why this is not working out or why we shouldn't go any further. I think people are becoming a little more cowardice in that sense, where it's like instead of coming up front and saying, you know what, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, I think we kind of play that game to appease people. So we always want to look good. We want to keep our image and how we view ourselves in a good light. We don't want anything to tarnish that. And unfortunately, when you bring bad news to somebody, you're risking somebody, maybe demeaning you or getting upset at you, insulting you, because that does happen as well. And I've heard those situations where, if you might want a second date with the woman and she's like, you know what, I'm not interested. And then maybe the guy might insult the woman after that, right? Like, oh, well, like who are you? Like, who do you think you are? Type of thing. So there's always going to be problematic situations that could happen from that. So I think in our society, we just try and avoid stuff.
Okay.
So like, for example, for yourself, if you didn't want to be with a woman, or at least, because I think you go someone also if you don't have any arrangements. Like if you don't have any arrangement, I feel you don't owe anyone anything. But say you're with somebody under the pretense that you guys are dating and she stopped messaging you, would you then message her? Because ghosting comes on both sides now. Just because one person doesn't message you doesn't mean you can't hit your phone up.
Yes.
So what happens in that situation? Like for yourself?
I would definitely ask the question, what's going on? Is everything okay?
So why do you think that part of it is not included? Because when people ghost, it's two people ghosting.
Yes.
So I don't even view that as ghosting, first of all. If I don't message you and you don't message me, is that not a mutual thing we're doing? Because both of us never communicated. How could I ghost you if you never asked the question of why did you ghost me? Or why aren't you messaging me? Why would you leave it like that? Or is it implied in the message and the actions?
I think sometimes we don't know what the other person's going through at that same time period, because as much as we could think that they're ghosting us, they could just be in a jam. They could just be in
I think that's
situation.
not a good enough excuse.
Being in a jam, huh?
It takes you 1 second to message somebody. Literally. Like it takes you at most 20 seconds to write a message that I have something going on. I can't message you
right now.
It doesn't take that much to communicate.
You're right.
And when I hear like, oh yeah, this guy ghosted me, it's like, did you message him or did you ask him why?
Yeah.
No, I didn't message him back because he never messaged me. Well, who do you think you are? Who do you think you're Queen Elizabeth? Like, people supposed to answer to your beck and call and keep tabs on you. You don't keep tabs on nobody. Who are you? Royalty? So I think there's some ego in that too with ghosting, because it takes two to tango, baby. It takes two to tango. Like, if I message you, you message back, right? So if I don't message you, you don't message back? Is that what we do? So then now, exactly, because then now, if I ghosted you and you never even had the slightest of concerns to ask about it,
you didn't really care.
You didn't care just as much as I didn't care, because I never messaged you and you never messaged me. So technically, we're playing the exact same game, and I kind of find that confusing, because it's like, it's always two sides to this. It's always two sides to this. And I think the fact of the matter is, you know, on the woman's side, they're going to say, oh, yeah, maybe I slept with this guy, or I was sleeping with him, then randomly, boom, he stopped messaging me. But they'll never say, I messaged him to ask what was going on. They'll just be like, he stopped messaging me, so I stopped messaging him. Because there's a pride thing. There's a pride thing going on there. Because who are you for me to ask you? You're not my man. I'm not going to be calling you up like you're my man. We just had a situationship. So you might not feel obligated to go message that person. Well, that person might not feel obligated to go message you. So we end up playing the same game. So that's why I find it confusing with the whole ghosting culture, because I'm like, we play this dumb game, both men and women, and then we get mad, but we are literally both doing the exact same thing. Just because you never initiated the ghosting doesn't mean you never participated in it, is what I'm saying. Just because you're not the first person that stopped messaging, you could have put the last message up, but what does it matter for you to check up on somebody? Because if someone had something going on, why didn't you ask? Instead, you kept quiet as well. You didn't ask, hey, is everything okay? Right?
That is correct.
You're supposed to ask, like, is everything all right with you? Is everything all right with us? Yeah. What is going on?
Concerned, yeah.
So I say, like, communication is big. And once two people decide not to communicate, then it's over. Then it's done. Because that's not ghosting. You both aren't concerned about one another. That's what that is. And you disappear from each other's life. But I think we're getting used to that, of just interacting for a short period of time, whether it's due to attraction, whether it's due to resources. And then we get together, but we're not really caring for the well-being of the other person.
Do you think that happens with friendship as well?
Yes. I think that happens with friendships as well, especially, you know, if your interests are not aligned. So sometimes you have friends and people that, you know, been around you maybe during certain periods of your life.
Okay.
And, you know, when they're around you, you might have had the same interests. You might have been working together, living in the same area, doing the same kind of things. And then once that gets erased, once that gets wiped away, or once you move on from that, you ask yourself, you know, what's keeping this relationship together? So with a friend, if you're not seeing each other as often, because your relationship might be playing basketball, going to the local YMCA, doing pickup runs every Friday.
That's true.
That might be your interaction with somebody. That doesn't mean you guys are best of friends. That just means that's someone you're associated with, that you have similar interests with, and somebody you're familiar with. But at the same token, if those Fridays at the YMCA stop, if you decide that there's nothing else you want to know about the other person, or nothing you want to get to know about the other person, most likely you're just not going to message them. You're not really going to check in on them. And I think in our culture, you know, unless, I know for us, we've read books on certain stuff that, you know, tell you certain things that you should pay attention to, especially when it comes to making friends and doing stuff like that. And I believe that a lot of people don't understand certain etiquette when it comes to friends. They only mess with you when you're doing the same thing as them.
Yes.
But once you're outside of their realm, they don't check in on you.
Yes.
So sometimes you ask yourself, was that a true friendship, or was that just because we had similar interests? Why you're concerned about me? Because once I'm no longer in your realm, you have no concern of what I'm doing on the outside. So you're not interested in the person, you're interested in the person that's interested in what you're interested in.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's more of a selfish reason
Yes.
for why you interact with the individual.
Yes, it's not organic. And
Yes.
sometimes people are saying, well, you have certain friends for certain things. Yes, but would you consider those people your friends? Like when like women have friends that they just go out with.
Yes.
Is that your friend? Is that somebody you consider a friend? Because someone you consider a friend, you don't hit up for just specific reasons.
Yes.
You hit them up because you're concerned about their life.
Yes.
And that's the same thing. Like, it's not just because you have similarities or just because you have relations or just because you're familiar with one another. It's going to come down to the people caring about you truly. Because, again, for your parents, you can't ghost your parents because you actually care about your parents.
Yes.
So you're going to check in because you're concerned about their well-being and you want to check in to make sure everything's good.
Yeah.
Right? And if something's bad, you have to be a shoulder to lean on. And I think a lot of people don't want to be that shoulder that others lean on, especially if, that person that's their friend or something is not that close to them. So I think people have a small circle. They don't have huge circles. They have a small circle, a focus group, you can say, of just specific friends they have for their everyday life, and then they have associates all over. And those are people acquaintances. Sorry, not associates, acquaintances. They have acquaintances all over the place. And those acquaintances serve a purpose for those realms, each individual realm they're in.
Yes.
So colleagues fit into one category. Sports teams is another category. Club events, like that type of party lifestyle, that's another category. You hit them up for those specific situations. Yeah, but sometimes we try to blend everything together, but I do believe you need specific friends for specific things. I don't think all your friends are going to agree to everything you like. Like, say, for example, if we both play basketball together, but you like Trump, I like Biden. Are we gonna now talk politics now? Because I support Biden, you support Trump. We're basketball friends.
Yeah, we came here to play basketball.
We came here to play basketball.
Not talk about politics.
So why are you talking about Trump now? So our relationship can dissolve because of that. Simply.
Yeah. Well, you know what happens? The reason why now you're talking politics is because you're getting comfortable with the individual. You guys are playing basketball. After basketball, it's not like you play basketball and you just go home. Well, hey guys, I'm out of here. Peace. It doesn't work like that. You have a conversation, and within conversation, maybe politics is thrown in, or they're talking about pop culture of the day. There's gonna be something that draws a conversation, and maybe in that conversation that you're having, you might stand on the opposite spectrum.
But the problem is, I think we're not open to opinions that are outside of our own.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to our friends.
Yes.
Because why would we associate ourselves with somebody that completely believes different than us?
Yes.
Especially, I'm talking about like close friends. Like, you're gonna have to have a lot of similarities with your close friends.
Yes.
Because if you're not, even close to friends, why would you care about his opinion?
Yeah.
It's like, that's just a basketball guy I hang out with. I don't care about his opinion. But if it's somebody closer to you that has more of an understanding of your lifestyle and certain things, that might offend you more.
Yes.
Whatever it is they support. It can be something else that's more egregious to you, but you're going to feel more of a way because that's somebody that maybe belongs to a circle of yours, and you can't have them in your circle with that type of rhetoric.
Yes.
So you understand, like, if you go to, like I said, if you're around a liberal group of people, well, you can't be rah and and pro-Trump and pro this and pro that.
Yeah, no,
and
definitely.
Andrew Tate and Joe Rogan and this and that and
cause friction for sure.
Yeah, red pill, like all the stuff you're saying there is gonna cause friction towards the group. Now they can like you as an individual, but they don't like your mentality.
Yes.
So therefore, they can never value you as a real true friend because you just don't have the same beliefs as them. You don't have the same thought process in them, ideology. Unfortunately, that affects a lot of relationships and friendships. How do you think? What's on your mind? What are you thinking about? What do you support? What are you into? What do you like? What do you dislike?
And I think when they do that, they're fishing to see if we are still alike, if your ideology is in alignment with their own. I think that's what they're doing.
But do you think you can have different ideologies and still be friends? Like you can keep that part separate? Or do you think that you have to think the same as people around you? Or do you believe everyone can be their individual as long as it doesn't affect what we're doing?
That's a hard one. That's a hard one just because are you really friends? You know what I mean? If the ideologies don't match and like I think when you mention like the different pockets where it's like, okay, we're going to play basketball, we're going to the club. You're not seeing them for long periods of time. You're seeing them for 1-2 hours max.
Yep.
Right? If the ideologies don't match, it's not really a big deal because at the end of the day, I only see you on Friday. What does it matter?
I only see you once a week.
Yeah, I see you once a week. What does it
15-minute talk about politics and I'm out of here.
And I'm out of here, right? And then you go back.
Kind of like the barbershop type of thing.
Exactly. So it's like I go back to my regular life, you go back to your regular life. Whatever you believe in and whatever I believe in, it's separate. So I can see you still being friends because again, even though the ideologies differ, you're still able to come together for a specific thing that you guys share interest in.
Yes.
And then after, people that share the same ideologies will probably see you a lot more than the people that you just associate with 1-2 hours.
Okay, that is true. Yes, absolutely right. Because like you said, in certain pockets, yes, absolutely. You're there to play basketball. You're not going to make a big deal about his political views, right? But what's your thoughts on then for like relationship wise and different views, like finding out somebody has different views than you while you're dating?
I don't think it's gonna work. I think you have to be more consciously aware of that.
Of the different views?
Yes, of the different views. Because I think a lot of people kind of go in there blindsided. They're blindsided. They're not thinking about if a person has a controversial view or a different ideology or views to their own, and they're still trying to make it work because maybe they're infatuated with the person's look or they're infatuated with what the person does and what they represent.
Yes.
But in the long term, that becomes problematic because you're going to keep bumping heads on issues that you don't have a similar interest in. And if you make the mistake, God forbid you make the mistake and have kids with that individual, oh my God. Now you're really in trouble.
You're going to be in trouble.
Now you're going to be in big trouble because now the religious views are going to be different. The cultural views are going to be different. The political views are going to be different. And all because you were infatuated with the individual, but you're not taking into consideration of the ideology that the person holds. So it could be completely against the belief system that you have. But now it's going to be a tug of war of how the kid is going to be raised. And I personally don't want to have a tug of war with my wife in how my child is supposed to be raised. We need to be on the same page.
See, it's tough in that sense because I go, okay, that's fine. Like, yeah, that makes absolute sense. But in your process of dating, you don't want to waste time, right? Like, say you're a serious dater. Like, you want to get a serious relationship. Like you said, marriage. You're looking for the one. I've seen so many times, women on these, it can be TikTok, whatever, Instagram.
There's no one. Let's just correct that.
Well, this is what people are looking for, the so-called the one. This is figure of speech, metaphorically, what you think is the one, right? So when I see on certain shows, there's all these shows, we watch, that Papa Balloon.
Yeah, that was very show. That's very, it's very famous right now.
Oh man, that one's like.
That's actually doing really well, and I think a lot of people are like kind of biting it.
Yes, but the point of the show is like think about it. The show, these people are popping this balloon pretty fast. Like when people come in, whether you're short, you dress a certain way, talk a certain way. Sometimes once you walk,
just walk,
pop. Yeah. So the show that we're talking about is they have the show and it's on Instagram and TikTok. It's very viral.
Yeah.
And pretty much you got contestants, whether it's going to be male contestants or
Yes.
female contestants on the one side that have the balloon,
Mhm.
and then a date prospect or just a prospect for dating
Yeah.
will come up on the show, and the contestants will have to either keep their balloon or pop it. If they don't want to date the guy, if they're not interested, you pop it. If you're
Yes.
interested, you keep your balloon, and then you have further discussion with the individual.
Yes.
So with that show, for example, this is just an example, and I'm saying this because it's easy to understand. On the show, it's like speed dating.
Yes.
So you're asking quick questions of the things you want and expect out of a partner, right? But think about regular dating.
Yes.
Most likely, you keep it light. You're
Yeah.
not trying to say the serious stuff so
Yes.
quick because it's like we don't know each other yet.
Yes.
So maybe let's get to know each other. Then we ask serious questions,
And
right?
people get put off by like very
And that's what I mean.
direct questions, but that's due to the society.
That's due to the society, because at the end of the day, if you're looking for something serious
Yes.
and say you're established in life,
Yes.
why are you wasting time?
That's the
Why are you
thing.
wasting time
Yeah.
to go and see? No, I want to know. I don't want to
Yes.
see.
Yeah.
I want to know what you believe in. I
Yes.
want to know what your political things. I
Yes.
want to know if you want children. I want to know what you plan to
Yeah.
do. If this, that, I want to know,
Just-
because
you don't want to waste your time.
yeah, because people might get married within a year. Like
Yes.
it doesn't take forever to
Yes.
marry somebody. You
Well,
know?
that's what they say.
They
6
can
months
figure
to
it
a
out.
year, you can
Yeah,
figure
you
out
can
what's-
figure it out. A lot of people get married in those times, so you can figure that out. But on the show, they're asking all the specifics, or they're discussing like the a lot of the specifics. And
Mhm.
but what I noticed with that, it did eliminate a lot of people too, because when they would say certain stuff, a person will pop it, boom,
Yeah.
the wrong ideology, pop, 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 pop. But then what I also realized is that, God damn, it's gonna take a hero to fucking satisfy anyone, because the expectations are very skewed. And
Yes,
here's the thing of why I
is
say they're
correct.
skewed. This is why I say they're skewed. Because you can have a woman that goes there that, average at best, in Kevin Samuel's words, average at best,
Yes.
wanting these grandiose men that have conquered villages and tackled lions with their bare hands, and all these kind of unrealistic expectations
Mhm.
for them. Now, I'm not saying they're unrealistic for everybody,
Mhm.
but you specifically
Mhm.
and the individuals specifically
Mhm.
that are looking for that, there's delusion attached to these things,
Mhm.
right? And of course, that's a show, it's for entertainment and those purposes. But this happens in real life, because
Mhm.
what we see on TV and through media gets translated. So, with that being said, a lot of the times it's like, well, who's going to be humble enough to make this work? So, it feels like you have to have some humility to even get a shot at making something work out. I feel like if you're so strict on you need to do this, that, you limit yourself.
You definitely do limit yourself. Humility is one thing that you're gonna need, and adaptability. I think
That's another one.
people need to understand that people are people, and they're not gonna follow everything that you want and what you require to the T.
That's where I say people are a little bit delusional.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so you do have to have you have to be a realist and allow people to be people.
Allow room for growth.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Let people develop.
Yes.
Because think about it.
You just need to know that the person is capable of developing.
Absolutely. Because think about it. If you get with somebody, you might be a better person, more developed
Yes.
person, more distinguished person, more financially stable person. So what does that mean now? Because you've now reached the higher peak. So again, how would you ever get to that point if you never had some leeways?
Yes.
If you never gave any leeway?
Yes.
If you think you have to be a ready package,
Yeah.
well, then you shoot yourself in the foot, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But are we really willing to work with somebody to build that? Are we willing to do that? Because again,
How cooperative is the individual? It has to come down to their level of cooperation
Uh-huh.
and their level of wanting to grow. right? If they want to remain stagnant and they're already set in their ways and they're saying it's my way or the highway, well, then I don't need something of that sort. And I think that's what the issue is, where some people are already set in their ways and they're saying that I want this, and that, and the third, but they're not willing to change whatever they got going on. They're going to stay on their platform and you're just supposed to meet them there. And if you don't meet them there, well, sayonara.
Said the best. See ya. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like I said, it's always going to be a situation where it's pretty tough. It's tough when you have like crazy expectations because people grow in life. Like, think about.
I think it just becomes, dating in general just becomes difficult as you age. I think when you're younger, because you're not looking for so many things, it's good and bad because you could get into a relationship with the wrong person and it could be toxic
for years.
Yeah. And you could be you could have a lot of trauma. From it, right?
Absolutely.
And have a child within that whole situation.
Yep. Lack experience with other people.
But at the same time, when you're older, you're like, damn, do I really want to get into a relationship after you've seen so many people
exit,
relationship,
breakups, makeups.
This was traumatic, and this girl did that, and this guy did this, and what the heck is going on?
Yeah, it starts to blow your mind, and we've heard so many stories. You know how many people I hear stories from, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like, are we really gonna get into a relationship? Are we really or if we get into a relationship, really we need to like do this like we're applying for a job. Like, we gotta really do research on the company pretty much, right? Like, we gotta know what we're getting ourselves into. And I think that's what makes it very difficult, is it becomes more business-like. And maybe that's because the system of marriage is a business and we have to think like businessmen when we're approaching a long-term relationship, because it comes with implications of money.
Yes.
It comes with implications of tutelage, so many different things, culture.
Hope strategy does not work in a situation that requires money to be spent.
You cannot rely on hoping.
No.
And too many times we watch movies, we watch shows. You've seen these dumb movies they put on where the guy gets the girl at the end and whatever. Happy ever after. Hey, propaganda.
Films.
The nerd will get the best girl.
Yes.
Because
you tell me in what world that happens. Unless you're freaking
Elon Musk, Zuckerberg.
The billionaires.
Billionaire dollar nerds. Yeah. That's the only nerds touching any of these type of, and even that, they
geniuses.
But again, even those guys, they don't go after the 10 out of 10.
Even those guys can lose their girls to somebody else that's A-class movie star.
Yes, it doesn't even need to be money at that point. They're rich enough. Other people will have money as well.
Yeah.
And there's only so much money you need in this world, right?
Yeah.
So it's just funny though, like the whole, like I said, relationship thing and it being a business and people getting into these businesses, these business arrangements, then it doesn't work out and all of a sudden you're up Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the house you lived in is no longer your house. It's a split house or it belongs to someone over the other. And again, even when it comes to like say prenups for people to have money and stuff like that, this creates problems with the other side, because even the other side understands it's a business and they understand that if I'm going to marry you, I need some guarantees.
Yes.
And that is financial guarantees because maybe they're not as financially sound as you.
Yes.
So I think the bottom line when it comes to a lot of long-term relationships, why people are very serious, especially in this day and age, because they know the divorce rates, because they know all the horror stories they've heard with child support, alimony, cheating, all these different things, common law, cohabitation. Oh my God, the list goes on.
So many.
I think that's why we're so rigid in dating, and that's why it makes it hard for people to commit to long term.
I don't know if we're rigid in dating. I think we're rigid in relationships.
Not dating, sorry.
Yes.
Rigid in relationships. So why we have high standards for relationships and low standards for dating. Because I think we do have low standards for dating. High standards for relationship. If you want to date somebody, if you want to take someone serious, all of a sudden you have a list of what you need.
100%.
When you want to date somebody, you're
open. You're free.
Whatever.
Free as a
Who
bird.
cares?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
If she's feeling me, maybe we go on a second date.
Yeah.
If she's not, maybe we ghost each other.
Yeah.
And then I try a different one.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not in
that's
a
why
rush.
It's a number game.
People,
you're not in a
people
rush.
aren't in a rush to lose money.
Yes.
So they're like, I can be patient for long. But guess what? Only men can be so patient.
Yes.
And who's the one that initiates marriage?
A man.
A man. So a man has the ability to be as patient as he wants.
Yes.
80 years old.
Yes.
He can now decide to get married and have a
could.
child.
We could.
So unfortunately, it's not fair for women
is
on that
life,
side. But
Life
such
is
is
not
life, they have other advantages. and
Yes. That
they
we
have a
don't
great
have.
gift. They have a
Yeah.
great gift. They can, create the child. They
Yes.
they get to have the 9 months.
They just gotta utilize their time wisely
Mhm.
when they are searching for a mate and whatnot. And yeah.
Absolutely. So, like I said, at the end of the day, these things are businesses. So, I think that's why a lot of people are running away from relationships.
I had one more thing I wanted to say. I just wanted to say in terms of if you're looking to get a prenup in a marriage, you might as well not get married because prenups don't last. They don't last.
not ironclad.
Yeah, they're not ironclad. So knowing that it's not ironclad, why would you even put yourself in a situation like that?
Yes, and knowing it's a business transaction, obviously, if you're getting a prenup, you'd understand the business behind
But
it.
that's what I'm saying. I don't.
It doesn't sound like marriage is for
marriage
you.
is for you.
I
because
think you should just.
if you're already coming in
Yeah.
with,
Don't do
sword in
traditional
hand,
marriage.
Yeah, if you're coming in like sword and shield in hand,
Mhm.
it's like, okay, so that's not for you because you already know that,
And the law will get you in many ways. You're trying to avoid marriage, they're gonna get you with
Yeah.
cohabitation. They're gonna get you with common law. They're gonna get you with this. They're gonna get you with that. We've heard so
And
many
that's-
lawsuits.
and that's due to the country. Maybe you want to get married in a different country because the laws are more favorable,
More
and
flexible.
more flexible, and how things will operate. Where you're not in panic mode and sweating, and I need a prenup, and I need to make sure this and that. Just get married somewhere else. I mean, that would be your
That's
best
another
bet.
option. That's another
Yeah,
option.
I think that's an option that a lot of people don't explore.
Uh-huh.
But I think if you are serious about getting married, maybe you want to see how marriage works out for other countries.
Yeah, looking at divorce rates, looking at
divorce rates
certain
and that too, right? And
and certain
understanding
cultural things.
understanding certain ethnicities and the
Yes.
culture and
Mhm.
how long, and looking at the percentage.
Because North American culture is not a marriage culture. I'm
Yes.
gonna say it right here and right
Yes.
now.
Yes.
It's not a culture that's promoting marriage as much as we think.
Yes.
Most people that get married, they belong to different cultures than
Yes.
the Westerner culture.
Yes. And I think that's all we got for today.
That's it. It's far from normal.
Far From Normal podcast, and we are out. Deuces.
Peace.
The way you make me feel. I'm just trying to get my